What's going on, YouTube? Time for another recap. So, a little awkward day today. A little bit of a slide. And as we always say, the future is getting manipulated overnight, never during live. We're going to get these beautiful gap downs to play. And we didn't have too much really to go over today. So, it was a real cut and dry day. After the dump, it just got real boring. Hour and a half of really nothingness, which we'll get into and what we're going to look for next. Only trade call posted here on X today, besides some scalp, was down to 484. So call this way up at 488.56. We're going to come all the way down to 484. Okay. So that was the only call right there made today on the Qs. So we'll get into that little area of opportunity here. So that was at 488.56, and that's about a 3.5 point move on NQ. So you're looking at like 150 points, something like that, right around there. So we called a little 150 points short to the downside again, killing that. And then we did have one other trade where we managed out of this one right here. We had a little bit of a long reversal scalp. I wanted to get up towards the 20,350 area. And of course, once we break golden pocket and then stop out range under that 2050, we've seen some interesting things coming up here on NQ, which we ended up getting out at the golden pocket pop here because we did see some volume. So we did add in, we did get out very small green. It was like 286 green on this one. And that's about it. So we didn't really have too much else. So let's get into it. So Qs. This is the one where we had an opportunity to see 484 from a prior intraday gap, right? So at 484, I'm sorry, 483.92, 483.91. There's a 1 penny gap left a long time ago, days and days and days. And this is an intraday gap. And a lot of times on this channel, we talk about these gaps will come back and they will fill eventually. It's not if they're going to fill, it is when they're going to fill, right? So this one filled today and we're still heading back down. We're in a perfect controlled algo sell and we just didn't really have anything else going on today. We had an over under level to play. So let's get into those too. So we had a monster call to the downside short. Didn't get a huge piece of that because it kind of stayed out. We have one algo here in the pre-market. So high low on the 5 minute. So the trade plan was very, very easy today. It's over under 489.40. So if the price action would have came inside, we would have went to the golden pocket long. If it stays outside, we are going to the 1618, like always in all these videos. It's a repeat, same thing, right? So nothing like consistency. We don't mind that. So after the break of 486.41 and continuation, we ended up coming down to the 1618 like usual. So we bounced it, right? So clear shot underneath. Up here's algo, down, 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 1618. It's always target one. Pops, great counter trend scalp, comes right back down, shows you that it wants nothing to do with the longs yet. Filled the 484 call short and hit 484 and a penny. This is a weekly Fibonacci you see right here coming down to the golden pocket. So this in between the 38.20 and 50, this is a golden pocket on last week's candle. So that is a high low. So I was watching some longer time frames today for that analysis. Now, what's to come? I think we're going to continue, obviously, the downside here and a gap and go to the downside, kind of leaning into some of the earnings and what we want to see for counter trend to get in short. If you are not short already or didn't pick up any of the 100 some point call this morning to the downside on X, we are looking for a bounce somewhere in this area. And I'll show you what we got here on SPY. And oh, I guess we'll have to redraw that one. Per the usual here, I always lose my drawings. I got too many panels up always, right? So this is another good look. And if you watch the last 3 YouTube videos, I'll go over SPY in a second, but if you watch the last 3 YouTube videos here, I had a completely beautiful weekly range candle here where I said the tippy top about 3 or 4 videos ago would be 423.60 fib up here, that 565 pretty much. That's the 666 on the weekly. That was about as high as I would see this thing go, no higher. So we did end up completing a lot of this fib box on the weekly. So same process as intraday scalping comes up, 16182, 423.60, 666. Now walking back down to 540.79, even 524. I mean, a lot of potential downside. We're definitely not calling that right now, but we do have a lot of potential even in the short term. So remember, and again, in the last 3 videos here, if we bring up the VIX on the daily chart, we went over the VIX right here, and I said we have the separation of the MAC doing really good on beat waves, and this is way back early July, I brought up the histogram wave height right here, and I said this small wave right here is going to get us in trouble because this is going to get beat out by a buyer wave because we were just on the uptrend with the MAC. We have higher low, higher high set into the RSI, so once we break to that top channel, everything is going to go long. So we had the short thesis coming for the last couple weeks or so. It's probably about a week and a half for this one, but we said we had to get out of the first 2 weeks of July because it's extremely bullish. So the first 14 days of July there are generally extremely bullish, which fine, that's fine. All we have to do is get out of the way of the market there for a little bit and then watch this thing run when it's ready to. And so it finally came its fruition here, and we had this beautiful long on the VIX this morning, and we've seen the gap and go. We left some intraday gaps here, which we're going to keep in mind. So these are going to be interesting as we come back to that downside when VIX chills out. But however high VIX decides it wants to go on this push, that's completely up to that. So we do have earnings, just some data tomorrow coming up, so we will further break this down as we go, right? So $15 over under is a really big level between 14 15. So if the VIX comes up into the 14 15 zones up here, which we are obviously into the 14, but if we start getting into the 15 here and start moving higher, that's a really big over under move for fast squeezes and big downside. So let's get over 15 on VIX to continue our call short, and let's go over the predictions on what we're going to look for here. My screens are going nuts here. Typical TOS. For further. So for further, I'm assuming just algo drop sell. We're going to keep this gap. We're definitely not going to fill it. That was our thesis this morning. We're going to keep this gap down. We're going to keep on keeping on. And anything under the 10 SMA daily, we're going to have an opportunity to continue, right? And what I did was the prior weekly, which we went there to redraw it. We didn't. It's going to be yesterday's week because for the last 3 days, SPY has been just putting in highs, highs, highs at all time. And Qs has been shitting out over and over and over again, which it's all again, all common. That's all standard, right? So we're going to get this high low like so on the weekly. And we're looking to fill this weekly candle up because these are the fibs that we were playing off of this morning, and we'll go over the intraday as well. So I think we're not going any higher than 565.47. That's an old level that we had. We tipped into that. We are back into last week's candle now, and then we have another big breakout candle that doesn't have any tests. We have tons of data to fill on the right side of a lot of these candles and a lot of these fib ranges because you see the week by week by week, we have just been plowing to that upside. And big things generally come in threes in the market, right? Even if there's tiny pullbacks that constitute those as a run. So big runs like this, on the weekly, it's not as easy to see. You got to give yourself a little cushion, but one push, two push, three push. And a lot of the times we can see big things happen after a three push. So generally we're looking for that as well. Now, if we go to the daily chart, which is a little easier to read, a little quicker. We also talked about some gaps that we do need to come back down and back test. We do have some on Qs, way more on Qs than we do on SPY. But that last gap, which lines up pretty decently here with the 2618 on the weekly, shows SPY is far down as 538.60. I would like this as a long-term target to the downside because it's about 4.75%. I was looking for 8 to 10% off of highs eventually here as we would complete, as the VIX set up, as we were watching it in the last couple of weeks. But, that's an if and when we get it. Now, coming back to at least the 423.60 is, I think, an easy attack if we stay under the gap. So my plan here is to watch price action, have the gap and go to the downside, loop a bit, stay under the 10 SMA daily and 558.92, right? Come back down here, 554.12, break, find 548.19, and these are the easiest targets to hit in the near term, okay? Because we can still bounce pretty bad from a couple of these, but I'm in the mood to see this thing down at 538.60 on this drop alone. Now, nothing goes in a straight line in the markets. What you want to watch for is confirmation, like always, right? You want to be a confirmational trader. So if we look at the daily chart, not only do we have the oscillation waves kind of giving up on this exhaustion, big buy wave, right? Medium, small. So the buyers are stepping away. We have higher high here and here, then lower high on RSI. So now we have the oscillation indicators all working for us on this red day. So confirmation is going to look like this. Wherever this closes today, we're going to high-low range the gap down candle. I don't care how big, how small, whatever it happens to be. We're going to wait for this candle to populate. This is going to be today's candle. Once that candle is populated today, we are going to draw a Fibonacci on that candle, and we're going to point it to the downside. And we're going to take those extensions for the 1618, 23, or 218.60, 1618, 2618, 423.60, walking it all the way back down, right? So this candle populates, and this candle's close in high-low is what we are determining this next trade-off coming into the week. So what I want to see again, even if we pop back up tomorrow, right, and we get back a little bit of the gains, which I don't really think is going to happen. I think we're going to get some good continuation, at least down to 55412. Let's say we bounce 55412 up and come back down. That lower high continuing under the gap is going to be confirmation off a low. So what you see here is our first low in the red. What you want to see is either the next 2 days create those lower low panels, right? Lower low, boom back up, then continuation down. And I don't care where that support comes in. You know, if it comes in before 55412, fine, but it's going to be candle lower, potential 1 and 2, and 3. We're going to look for that bigger candle, 4 detrimental candle. So you got a little bit of time to take these, and if it doesn't work out and it just panics out from here, perfectly fine. I'm already in short. We got contracts option ranging at 5,600 on ES. Hit a couple different entries at $27, 13 days out. So for me, 13 days out, 5,600 puts, $27 entry. That's what I'm working with right now. And those are doing okay. So I think once we stand off this 10 SMA support, we break that down because we haven't seen the 10 SMA in quite some time here. As you notice, our last little interaction, we pushed back down. And again, the Fibonacci to the downside pointing to this gap. Okay, so this gap right here at price action, right here on SPY, 538, 540, that's also the 2618. So what I want to see again is just static, boom, boom, walk itself down, 1618, boom, boom, 2618. Okay, so it'd be beautiful to break out of the fib box range here, come down to the 1618, back test the 100, then go to target. 2618. Now, we don't know exactly what those candles are going to look like. If we get a day or two of consolidation, or even if we get a pop back, it'd be beautiful because the VIX is really kicking butt right now. It's up, 13 to 1478. We got 15 right around the corner. So if the VIX needs to relax a little bit and doesn't want to put in another giant candle, perfectly fine. But we'll see what the catalyst brings tomorrow, jobs and so on and so forth the rest of the week on data. And I'm hoping those are going to be bearish entities. Okay. So back to ES real quick. I do want to cover this real fast because we do have a couple different fibs working off just ES alone. So if you're an overnight trader like us and we do trade futures throughout the overnight, we're going to have the very similar candle setups here for what we see coming in too. So I'm going to show you what candle I would take out of the daily on ES. And if you're after hours traders like us, pay attention. Yesterday was an all-time high click. Now we're heading down. So what I do on ES is I take the high low and I'll look for my overnight targets if SPY is not hitting them because we're close. We're going to point it to the downside. And this also gets us a nice little continuation day, I think, on probable back test of highs and really good fib zones that we just have not hit yet because these stair steppers, we just never come back from algo buys like this where it's just perfectly cubed candles like this, perfect high lows, perfect bodies. They all look the same. It's like copy paste, control C, control V, control C, control V over and over and over again. When I see stair steps like this, I know these zones needed to be back tested immensely because each one has missed a half candle retrace. And for me and here at Boiler Room Trading, we're very big on half candle retraces. So I think this whole zone is a very easy hit on ES. So I would stay short here. And then again, if we can get a push back up anywhere off the 10 SMA, right? Just a tiny little push back up in the next 2 days and walk it down. We're going to see us test here into that 5580s. Now I have 5,600 puts. I'm about 50 point. Where were we at? I was at about 55, 65 points away from target from entry up here when I bought those. So I'm at entry of about 56, 58 area. And then I want to see down here to 5,600, which is also where I got my target from. At 5,600, and why I took those puts is because of this Fibonacci. So yesterday's high low pointed to the downside, gives us a 2618 of 5,600 on ES. So that's where we got that. Now, if we again hold up at the 1618, we find support at 5640s area here, and again, just maybe 1 or 2 candles to that downside before she wants to loop back down to 5,600. That's perfectly fine. I might even add into the short because we don't have too big of a position. Only 2 contracts from 4 because I paid myself a little bit. Now we're just going to sit here and let these contracts work out to the downside. Now, when they slow stuff down like this, the options on futures are okay. Holding them overnight is okay, but just make sure you get a couple weeks out. I like to do about 13 days out. If we got a fast-paced move, this is a fast/slow. If we're looking for in the next week here to drop out, I'm looking for a 2-3 days consolidation, 2-3 days drop. And that's a quicker one. Sometimes I go a month out if we're really looking for some serious down moves, but right now this is a perfect controlled buy where they slow down the candles. You can see how tiny these candles become, and they get very very easily manipulated and controlled. So even when it opened today, these tiny candles where, you know, we had the pop to drop open and then it literally did nothing for hours and hours and hours. It feels like hours just watching paint dry. So when that happens, these long consolidation days, these are where the algos grab it and they just slow it down so much. This whole range right here was like at 2 hours almost, I think, before this drop right here, that even the lows, so 120, exactly 2 hours. So 2 hours of the exact same dead range of nothingness. That's when you know thing is it's going to continue trend. It's going to continue that downside. And we're just going to have to wait for that pop to short or follow the continuation. So I took a couple contracts to follow the continuation. So if it does continue down, we're getting paid, but we're not big enough in the position where we can't say, okay, if it reverses on us for a little bit, we can add to a couple contracts, make it, you know, 8, 10, 15, 20, and then really get that next poised downside in the next couple days as the market wants to hopefully give us that setup. If it doesn't want to give us the setup, at least we're in and we can make a little money. If it gives us the pop to drop, it's going to give a lot of money. So that's the prediction coming up. This is the big call for the day. Another 150 pointer, just about. It's like, oh, 126. I lied, but 126 pointer for that short on the Qs. And now we're just going to watch this chop slow action drain out. And I'd say 5,600. All right. So tune in on the next one. If you do find any value out of these videos, you want to trade with me live and us at Boiler Room Trading, watch me and my partner break down these markets live and navigate and talk through each one of these trades. We do it every morning. So we're here. So you guys take care. We'll see you on the next. Trade safe.